My name is Anna. I live in a small house outside Hamburg. My home is simple, but I love it. It has a small kitchen, a small living room, and a little garden behind it. I like my quiet life. Next to my house, there is a row of allotments. In Germany, many people have small garden plots like these. Each one has a little hut, a few trees, and some flowers. People come there to rest, plant vegetables, or drink tea in the sun. One of those gardens belonged to a man named Mr. Meyer. His full name was Wolfgang Meyer. He was an old man, maybe 70 or more. He lived alone, and he came to his garden almost every day. I often saw him walking down the path with a small bag of food for his fish. He always wore the same hat and brown jacket. He moved slowly, but he seemed happy there. Mr. Meyer had a small pond in the middle of his garden. He built it himself many years ago. He told me once that he had goldfish inside it. "They are my family," he said to me, smiling. "Each fish has a name." I remember laughing softly when he said that. He was a little strange, but kind. I sometimes brought him apples from my tree, and he gave me fresh tomatoes from his garden. The gardens were quiet most of the time. Some people came on weekends to drink coffee or plant flowers. But Mr. Meyer came every morning. Sometimes I saw him talking to his fish, as if they could understand him. He looked peaceful when he did that. Maybe he was lonely. I never saw anyone visit him. He had no wife or children, as far as I knew. One Sunday morning, I walked past his garden on my way to the bakery. Mr. Meyer was standing by the pond. His face looked white and sad. I stopped and asked if everything was okay. He pointed at the water. I saw some small goldfish floating on the surface. They were dead. The water was still and dark. I did not know what to say. He looked broken. "They were fine yesterday," he whispered. "I don't understand." I felt sorry for him. I said maybe it was the weather or the water was bad. He shook his head. No. I take good care of them. I change the water. I feed them right. This should not happen." His voice was quiet, but full of pain. I told him to call someone who knew about fish, maybe a vet. But he just looked at the pond and did not answer. A few days later, I saw him again. He looked tired. He said he wanted to sell his garden. "I can't stay here," he told me. "It hurts too much." I felt sad for him. That little place was his whole life. But he said no one wanted to buy it. "They say it feels strange," he said. "They say something is wrong with it." I did not know what he meant. Weeks passed, and Mr. Meyer came less and less. One day I saw a man looking at the garden. He was younger, maybe 40. He said he was thinking of buying it. His name was Peter. He said he liked the quiet place and wanted to grow flowers. A few weeks later, he bought the garden from Mr. Meyer for a very low price. He moved in and started fixing it. Peter worked hard. He cleaned the pond, cut the grass, painted the hut, and planted new flowers. Soon the garden looked beautiful again. The pond had new fish, and they swam happily in the water. I liked Peter. He was kind and friendly. Sometimes we drank tea together and talked about plants. Mr. Meyer visited again one afternoon. I saw him standing by the fence, looking at his old garden. His eyes were quiet, almost jealous. Peter saw him and waved. "Would you like to come in?" he asked kindly. Mr. Meyer smiled a little and went inside. They talked for a while. From my window, I saw them standing near the pond. Mr. Meyer looked down at the water for a long time. His face was calm but strange. After that day, Mr. Meyer came often. Sometimes he stood outside the fence just to look. Other times, he walked slowly around the garden when Peter was there. He always stared at the pond. Once I asked Peter if it bothered him. He laughed and said, "No, he just misses this place." Poor man. One morning, I went to hang laundry outside. I saw Peter walking toward my gate. He looked worried. "Anna," he said, "come see something." I followed him to his garden. The pond was full of dead fish again. Every single one was floating on the surface. The water looked dark and thick. The smell was bad. I felt a cold feeling in my chest. Peter shook his head. "I don't understand. I did everything right. I cleaned it. I fed them. It happened overnight." He looked tired and upset. I did not know what to say. I remembered Mr. Meyer's face when his fish had died. The same sadness. The same silence. That evening, I saw Mr. Meyer again. He was walking down the path, slow and quiet. He stopped near Peter's gate and looked at the garden. Then he turned and walked away. His face looked empty, but something in his eyes made me uneasy. A few days later, Peter told me he got a letter. It was from Mr. Meyer. He showed it to me. The writing was neat but strange. It said, "Dear Peter, I can help you with your fish problem. If you let me use the garden on weekends, I promise the fish will never die again. But if you say no, I fear the problem will become worse." Peter looked confused. "What does he mean?" he asked me. I didn't know. The words sounded strange, almost like a warning. "Maybe he's just sad," I said softly. "Maybe he wants to come back." Peter did not answer. He folded the letter and put it in his pocket. His face looked pale. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the pond, about the fish, and about Mr. Meyer's quiet eyes. Something did not feel right. The next morning, I saw Peter working in the garden again. He said he would not let an old man scare him. But when he said that, he looked worried. The air felt heavy that day. Even the birds were quiet. I walked back to my house and looked once more at the pond. The water was still. I could see my own face in it, and behind me, in the reflection, I thought I saw someone else. It was only for a second, but I turned quickly. No one was there. That was the moment when I first felt something was wrong in our little garden colony. Before I continue rest of the story, please like, subscribe, share, and tell me where you are listening from. Your support means a lot to me. Now let's continue. After that day, things in the garden colony started to feel different. It was hard to explain, but something had changed. The air felt heavy and still. The smell from Peter's pond stayed for many days. The water looked dark again, even after he cleaned it. Peter tried to make everything look normal. He bought new fish and said it was fine, but his voice did not sound fine. I often watched from my kitchen window. The garden that used to look bright and calm now felt strange. The flowers were still beautiful, but the sound of the wind in the trees made me uneasy. Every time I walked by, I looked at the pond. I felt like it was watching me back. Mr. Meyer did not come for some time after sending the letter. Peter said he ignored it and did not reply. "He's just an old man," Peter told me. "Maybe he's lonely and wants attention." But I could see he was not sure. He checked the gate lock every night. He even put up a small fence around the pond. One Friday evening, I came home from the shop and saw someone standing by the gardens. It was getting dark. The sky was red and gray. The man was wearing a brown jacket and an old hat. He was standing still near the gate of Peter's plot. I could not see his face clearly, but I knew it was Mr. Meyer. I slowed my walk. He did not move. He just looked through the fence at the pond. When I got closer, I said softly, "Mr. Meyer, is that you?" He turned his head a little. His eyes looked empty, like he was not really there. "Good evening," I said again. He smiled, but it was a cold smile. "The water looks better now," he said slowly. His voice was dry and quiet. I did not know what to say. "Yes," I replied. "Peter takes good care of it." Mr. Meyer looked at me for a long moment, then said, "We will see," and walked away. That night, I could not stop thinking about his words. "We will see." It sounded like a warning. The next morning, I woke up early. The air was cold. I made coffee and went to the garden to water my flowers. I heard something from Peter's garden, the sound of footsteps and a splash. I looked over the fence. Peter was standing by the pond, holding a bucket. He looked pale. "Anna," he said, "come here." I went closer. The water in the pond was moving as if something had just fallen in. Peter pointed. There was a small hole in the fence, and next to it, a wet footprint. He shook his head. "Someone came here last night," he said. "Maybe an animal," I said quietly, though I didn't believe it. He looked at me. "Do you think it was him?" I did not answer. We both thought the same thing. That afternoon, Peter went to talk to the colony caretaker. He asked if anyone had seen Mr. Meyer. The caretaker said yes. He had seen him walking near the gardens around midnight. He said Mr. Meyer told him he was checking the fish situation. Peter looked angry. "This is my garden now," he said. But the caretaker just shrugged. "He's been here for 30 years, he said. He still thinks it's his. Later that evening, Peter decided to stay in his garden overnight to watch. He wanted to see if anyone came again. I told him it was not safe, but he said he was tired of being scared. "It's just an old man and some fish," he said, trying to smile. That night I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I looked out my window. The gardens were dark except for one small light near Peter's hut. It flickered like a candle. I watched for a long time. The air was very quiet. Then I thought I saw something move near the pond. A shadow, slow and thin. I blinked, but it was gone. The next morning, I saw Peter again. He looked tired. His eyes had dark circles. "Did you see anything?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "I heard someone whispering outside. I went out with a flashlight, but no one was there. Only the sound of water." He laughed a little, but it didn't sound like a real laugh. Maybe I'm going crazy. For a few days, nothing happened. The pond stayed calm. The flowers grew. Mr. Meyer did not come. Slowly, Peter started to relax again. He even said he might build a small bridge over the pond. Then, one cloudy afternoon, I was planting onions when I heard a sound, a sharp cry from Peter's garden. I ran there quickly. Peter was kneeling beside the pond. The water was full of fish again, but they were all dead. Every single one. His hands were shaking. "No," he said. "Not again." He looked at me, his face white. "I didn't touch anything. I didn't feed them anything new. I did everything right." He sounded desperate. I looked at the pond and felt cold all over. The water looked darker than before, almost black. That evening, Peter decided to call Mr. Meyer. He said he wanted to ask him what he meant in his letter. He called the number from the note. No one answered. He tried again and again. Still nothing. The next morning, he went to Mr. Meyer's house in Hamburg. When he came back, he looked even more pale. "What happened?" I asked. "He wasn't there," Peter said. "His neighbor said he's been gone for 3 days. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. That night, there was a storm. The wind blew hard. I could hear tree branches hitting the windows. I couldn't sleep, so I looked out again. I could see flashes of light from the sky, and for 1 second, I saw someone standing near Peter's pond. The lightning made everything bright for a moment. The man, the hat, the still figure near the water. Then it was dark again. I ran to the phone and called Peter, but he didn't answer. I called again and again. The line was dead. The storm got worse. I stayed awake the whole night, listening to the rain hit the windows. In the morning, I went to Peter's garden. The air was wet and heavy. The pond looked strange. The water was clear again, almost shining. The dead fish were gone. Peter was sitting on the ground beside the pond, staring into the water. He looked tired and cold. I asked if he was okay. He turned to me slowly. "They're gone," he said. His voice was quiet. "The fish?" I asked. He shook his head. "The fish, the smell, everything. It's clean again. Like before." I looked at him, confused. "What happened last night?" He looked at the water again. "He came," he whispered. "Mr. Meyer came. He said he just wanted to see them one last time. I told him to leave, but he didn't listen. He walked to the pond. He touched the water. Then he looked at me and said, 'Now it's mine again.' And then he was gone." I felt my hands grow cold. "Gone? What do you mean?" Peter looked up at me. "He walked into the pond, and I didn't see him come out." I stared at the pond. The water was still, shining in the morning light. I wanted to say something, but no words came out. We both stood there, silent. The caretaker came later that day. He said he checked the whole garden. No one found anything. The police came too, but they said maybe it was just a story. An old man who lost his way. But that night, when the sun went down, I went to close my window. I looked toward the gardens one last time. The moonlight shone on the pond. The water moved slowly. For a second, I thought I saw something under the surface. A shadow, moving softly, like a hand. I closed the window quickly, and from that night, I never walked past that pond again. The days after the storm were strange. The air around the gardens felt colder than before. Even when the sun came out, it felt heavy and still. Peter no longer talked much. He came to his garden early in the morning and always left before dark. Sometimes I saw him sitting beside the pond, just looking at the water. He did not plant new flowers. He did not fix the hut. He did not smile. People in the colony started to whisper. Some said Mr. Meyer had gone to stay with family in another town. Some said he was sick. Others said they had seen him walking near the river at night. No one really knew the truth, but everyone agreed that something about the pond felt wrong. Even the air around it seemed strange. One afternoon, I brought Peter some soup. He looked tired and weak. His eyes had dark circles. He thanked me and said he had not slept well. Then, in a quiet voice, he told me the water in the pond sometimes moved by itself at night. He said he heard soft voices calling names, the same names Mr. Meyer once gave to his fish. "I think he is still here," Peter whispered. I wanted to tell him it was just his imagination, but the words would not come. That night, I had a dream. I saw Mr. Meyer standing in the pond. The water was black and still. He was holding something shiny in his hands. When he looked at me, his eyes were full of sadness. Then he said, "They were mine." I woke up with a start. The room was dark. I could hear rain on the window and a soft splash far away, like water falling into a bucket. The next morning, the sky was gray. I went to Peter's garden to check on him. His gate was open, and the hut door was half closed. I called his name, but no one answered. When I walked closer, I saw his boots lying beside the pond. The ground was wet, and the water looked calm. There were no fish. The pond was empty. I ran to the caretaker's house and asked him to come quickly. We went back together. Peter's phone and wallet were inside the hut, but Peter was gone. We called the police. They searched the whole area, but they found nothing. They said maybe he had gone away suddenly, but that did not make sense. Everyone in the colony knew something was wrong, but no one wanted to talk about it. A few days later, the caretaker locked the gate to Peter's garden. He said it would stay empty for now. After that, the colony became quiet again. People came less often. Some said they wanted to sell their plots. I tried not to look at the locked garden, but sometimes I could not help it. The flowers were dying. The hut looked old and sad. The pond still shone faintly under the gray sky, like it was waiting for someone. One cold Sunday afternoon, I went for a walk. I passed by the colony path. When I looked up, I saw that the gate to Peter's garden was open. The lock was hanging loose. I stopped walking. No one should have opened it. I looked around. The place was empty. Slowly, I stepped inside. The ground was soft and wet. The hut door was open, and inside it smelled like damp earth. On the table was a small wooden box covered in dust. I touched it carefully and opened it. Inside were small pieces of paper, each with a name written in neat letters. Lena, Otto, Clara, Max. They were the names of Mr. Meyer's fish. My hands started to shake. Then I heard a sound from outside. The water in the pond was moving. I turned my head and saw small bubbles rising to the surface. The water began to ripple, forming a circle in the middle. My heart beat faster. I wanted to move, but I couldn't. The circle grew wider. For a second, I thought I saw a face under the surface. The eyes were closed. The face looked calm, almost peaceful. Then the water became still again. I put the box back on the table and walked slowly out of the hut. When I reached the gate, I looked back one last time. A thin mist was rising from the pond. It moved softly in the air, like smoke, and then disappeared. After that day, I never went back to the allotments. I sold my small house and went to live with my sister in Bremen. I told her I wanted a new start, closer to the city. But that was not the real reason. The truth was, I could not stay near that garden any longer. Sometimes, even now, I dream about it. I see the path, the little hut, and the pond shining under the moonlight. In my dream, I always hear the same soft voice. It says, "They are safe now." When I wake up, my heart beats fast, and I can still smell the damp air of that place. Maybe Mr. Meyer only wanted peace. Maybe he loved his fish so much that he could not let them go. Or maybe some gardens keep what belongs to them forever. I do not know the truth, but every time I see water, in a glass, in a puddle, after rain, or even in the sink. I find myself looking deeper. Sometimes when the light is low, I think I see something small and golden moving under the surface. Then I turn away quickly. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to English Medium Stories. Stay with us for more classic stories in easy English. My name is Liana. I am 30 years old. I live with my husband Mark and our son. Our son's name is Leo. He is 4 years old. We live in a small apartment in a quiet street. The apartment has 1 bedroom, 1 small living room, and 1 kitchen. It is not big, but it is our home. We do not have many things, but we take care of each other. My husband Mark worked at a construction company. He worked hard every day. He carried heavy boxes. He fixed walls. He worked in the hot sun and in the cold rain. He did not earn much money, but his job was stable. His salary helped us pay the rent, the bills, and food for the week. We did not have extra money for new clothes, or for trips, or for fun things, but we were a simple family. We wanted peace, not luxury. Mark always told me that he wanted to give me and our son a better life one day. He wanted a better job. He wanted more money. He wanted to feel proud as a father and husband. I always told him he was already a good man. I told him he was enough. But inside, I also wished for a little more comfort. I wished for a nice dress. I wished for a small cake for my son's birthday. I wished for a little freedom from worry. One evening, Mark came home with a big smile. His eyes were bright and full of hope. He sat beside me and held my hands. He said, "My boss told me I will get a promotion next month." My heart jumped with joy. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. I felt free. I felt happy. I imagined our life with a bigger income. I imagined a small celebration for Leo. I imagined buying a new dress for myself. I imagined eating at a restaurant for the first time in years. Mark looked so happy that evening. He hugged Leo and lifted him in the air. He said, "Papa will have a better job soon." Leo laughed and clapped his hands. Everything felt warm and bright, but life changed very fast. 2 weeks later, Mark came home late. His face was serious. His eyes looked tired. He did not smile. He sat on the chair and did not say a word. I felt my heart beat faster. I asked, "What is wrong, Mark?" He did not look at me. He put his face in his hands. After a long moment, he said, "They let me go." I felt cold. For a second, I did not understand. I asked, "What do you mean?" Mark took a deep breath. He said, "The company is closing some offices. They said there is no work. They fired me." I felt like the floor moved under my feet. I looked at my husband. His eyes were wet. He tried not to cry, but I could see the pain inside him. I sat beside him and held his hand. I told him we would be fine. I told him he would find a new job. But inside, I was scared. Our life was already hard. Now it felt impossible. That night I could not sleep. I looked at the ceiling for hours. I thought about the rent. I thought about the bills. I thought about our son. I thought about the money we had saved. It was not much. Maybe it could help for 1 or 2 months. After that, I did not know what would happen. I tried to be quiet because I did not want Mark to feel worse. I knew he already felt like he had failed us. I did not want him to see my fear. The next morning, Mark woke up very early. He said he would start looking for work right away. He took his old laptop and sat at the table. He sent many CVs. He wrote emails. He checked job websites. He called companies and asked for openings. He left the house for interviews. He walked from place to place under the hot sun. He came home tired every evening. When I asked, "Did you get the job?" he always said, "No, not yet." Each day, he looked more worried. His shoulders became heavy. His eyes became dark. His voice became quiet. Weeks passed. The savings became smaller. I cooked cheaper food. Sometimes we ate the same meal for 2 days. I cut old clothes to fix new ones for Leo. His shoes broke, so I fixed them with glue. I did not buy anything for myself. I did not buy snacks. I did not buy makeup. I did not even buy a new spoon when one broke. I tried to save every small coin. One day, I took off my ring and looked at it. It was not expensive, but it was important to me. When I bought it, it felt like a promise. But now, we needed money more than a ring. I sold it to pay for the rent and the bills. I cried after selling it, but I told myself it was for my family. One afternoon, my friend Sarah came to visit. She saw me cooking. She tasted the food and said, "Liana, this is very good. Why don't you try selling your food online?" I looked at her with surprise. I had never thought about selling food. I always cooked for my family. I never imagined cooking for other people. Sarah told me she had seen other women selling homemade meals online. She said it could bring a little money. That night, I told Mark about the idea. He looked upset. He said, "You do not need to work. You already do too much. I will find a job soon. Do not worry about money." I could see that he felt sad. Maybe he felt like he had failed. I touched his arm gently and said, "It is just until you find a job. It will help us a little." After a moment, he agreed. I took pictures of my food and posted them online. At first, nothing happened. Then one person ordered a meal. Then another. Soon I had 2 or 3 orders a week. Then I had more. The money was small, but it paid for groceries. It helped us survive. But it also made my days very long. I cleaned the house. I washed dishes. I cooked for customers. I took care of Leo. I put him to sleep. I washed more dishes. At night, I felt so tired that my hands shook. My back hurt. My eyes felt heavy. But I kept going because I knew we needed the money. Mark still looked for work every day. He went to interviews. He walked to many places, but no one called him back. I knew he was trying. I knew he wanted to help us. But after months of stress, I began to feel heavy inside. I began to feel alone. I felt like everything was on my shoulders. One evening, Leo started crying in his room. I was cooking. Hot oil burned my hand. I felt pain and I felt tired. I looked at Mark sitting on the sofa. I felt angry. I said, "What are you doing? You promised you would find something. I work all day. I cook. I sell food. I feed this house. And I still worry about everything. I am tired." "Mark." My voice was shaking. Mark did not shout back. He looked at me with sad eyes. He said, "I am trying, Liana. I am trying." His voice was soft and tired. He sounded like a man who had lost everything inside. At that moment, I felt mixed emotions. I felt angry. I felt sad. I felt guilty. I saw the pain in his eyes. I felt ashamed for shouting. He got up and left the room. He sat outside on the stairs. I saw him through the window. He looked hurt. He looked alone. I did not want to break him. I only wanted him to wake up and fight again. But I also knew he was already fighting. Life was just too hard. The next morning, we both said sorry. I said, "I am sorry for shouting. I was scared." Mark said, "You were right, Liana. I should do more." That day, something changed inside him. He stopped waiting for the perfect job. He applied to small companies. He asked for any work. He went to a restaurant and asked if they needed a cleaner. He applied for a taxi job. He called many people. Still, no one hired him. But he did not stop. He tried every day. Before I continue rest of the story, please like, subscribe, share, and tell me where you are listening from. Your support means a lot to me. Now let's continue. Days passed and Mark kept looking for work. He left early in the morning and came home late. Sometimes he walked for hours. Sometimes he took a bus and waited in long lines for interviews. He always came home with a tired face. When he entered the house, I looked at him and tried to read his eyes. I wanted to see hope, but many days I saw only worry. I always asked the same question. I asked, "Did you get the job?" He always gave the same answer. He said, "Not yet." His voice was weak. His shoulders were low. I could see that each no hurt him more than the last. The savings continued to fall. Every week we paid the rent. Every week we paid for food. Every week the number in our bank account became smaller. I counted money many times a day. I counted coins. I counted notes. I counted every little thing. I tried to plan the whole month. I tried to see how long we could survive. Sometimes I sat in the kitchen with my head on the table and closed my eyes. I felt tired all the time, but I had to stay strong. I had to be calm for my son. I had to support Mark. I had to keep the house going. My food business helped, but it was small. Some days I got many orders, some days I got none. I woke up early to prepare breakfast for my son. Then I cleaned the house. Then I cooked for customers. I packed the meals and sent them out. When a customer liked the food, they ordered again. When a customer did not like it, they did not come back. I did my best to make good food. I wanted every meal to be tasty and clean. But I also felt tired. I did not have time to rest. I did not have time to think about myself. I did not have time to breathe. One afternoon, I stood in the kitchen and looked at my hands. They were dry from washing dishes. They were red from hot pans. They looked older than my age. I felt sad. I felt like I was losing a part of myself. But I told myself that this was for my family. I told myself that it would not be forever. I told myself that Mark would find work soon. That thought helped me stay strong. Mark tried many different jobs. One day, he went to a small workshop. They needed a helper. But when he told them he had worked in construction, they said he was too experienced. Another day, he went to a shop to ask about cleaning work. They told him they wanted a woman for the job. Another day, he went to a hotel to ask about night shifts. They told him they already had enough workers. Every time he came home, I saw how his hope slowly faded. One evening, we sat at the table after dinner. Mark was quiet. I was quiet too. The room felt heavy. I did not know what to say. Mark looked at me and said, "Do you think I am useless?" My heart broke when I heard that. I moved closer to him and held his hand. I said, "No, you are not useless. You are trying. We are a team." He looked down. He said, "A man should take care of his family, but you are working more than me." I told him, "I am doing this because I love you. You are my husband. We are fighting this together." He nodded softly, but I knew he still felt bad. I could see it in his eyes. 2 months passed. The stress grew in our home. Our son Leo was still young, so he did not understand what was happening. But sometimes he looked at us with confused eyes. He saw us tired. He saw us quiet. He saw us worried. He often came to me and said, "Mama, are you okay?" I smiled and told him yes, even when I wanted to cry. I did not want him to feel scared. One night I got a call from the landlord. He said we were late with the rent. I told him we would pay in a few days. After the call, my hands shook. I felt pressure in my chest. I knew we had no money left. I knew we had 1 or 2 days to fix the rent. I cooked dinner, but my mind was full of fear. Leo began to cry in his room. Oil in the pan spilled on my hand, and it burned me. I felt pain. I felt tired. I felt lost. Mark walked into the kitchen. He looked at me. I felt something inside me break. I said, "Mark, what are you doing? You said you would find a job. I work all day. I cook. I sell food. I take care of everything. And I am still the one worrying about money. I am tired." My voice was louder than normal. My chest was tight. My eyes were wet. I felt like I had carried too much for too long. I felt like I was falling. Mark stood still. He did not move. He did not shout back. He looked at me like a man who had no more words. He said, "I am trying, Liana. I am trying every day." His voice was soft and full of pain. He looked at the floor. His whole body looked tired. I felt angry at the situation, not at him, but he felt the anger as if it was his fault. After a moment, he walked out of the room. He opened the door and sat on the stairs outside. I stood in the kitchen and looked at the door. I felt guilty. I felt sad. I did not want to hurt him. I only wanted help. I only wanted support. I washed the dishes slowly. Through the window, I saw Mark sitting on the steps. He looked alone. He looked like he was carrying a heavy weight. I wanted to go to him, but I felt too tired to move. I finished the dishes and checked on Leo. Then I sat in the living room and cried quietly. Life felt too hard. The next morning, Mark came to me and said he was sorry. I told him I was sorry too. I told him I was scared. He touched my arm and said, "I know." I looked into his eyes. I saw pain. I saw fear. But I also saw love. He said, "You were right yesterday. I should do more. I cannot wait for the perfect job now. I will take any job I can find." Something inside him changed that day. I saw it. He looked more serious. He looked ready to fight again. Mark started looking for every kind of job. He did not care if the job was small. He went to a restaurant and asked if they needed a cleaner. They took his number but did not call. He went to a shop and asked if he could help. They told him they would think about it. He went to a taxi company. They asked him to fill a form. He tried everything. Every morning he woke up early. He washed his face. He dressed quickly. He left the house with hope. And every night he came home tired, but he still tried the next day. I saw him changing. He was not the same man who sat silently on the sofa months ago. Now he stood with more strength. Even if life said no, he kept going. He gave me a small smile every night. I gave him a small smile back. Slowly, the fear inside me became smaller. It did not disappear, but it became lighter. I felt like we were fighting together again. One night, he came home with a small bag of fruit. He said he used the last money in his pocket because he wanted Leo to have something sweet. Leo laughed with joy. I looked at Mark and felt warm inside. Even in hard times, he wanted to make our son happy. Even without a job, he still tried to give something. I felt love for him. I felt respect. I felt hope. But life was still hard. The next month was the same. Mark tried. I worked. We both waited for one small change. We both waited for one good day. We both waited for one yes. Every night I prayed for something good to happen. One morning, Mark woke up early. He looked tired but ready. He said he had one more interview. He said it was at a small factory outside the city. He did not look excited. He looked scared. He said, "What if they say no again?" I touched his hand and said, "Go. Mark, try one more time." He took a deep breath, wore his old coat, and left the house. I waited at home. I cleaned the kitchen, but my hands felt weak. I checked my phone many times. I looked at the door again and again. I prayed for good news. I wanted one good moment for our family. After 3 long hours, Mark came home. His face looked empty. My heart fell. I thought he did not get the job. I walked to him slowly. Then he looked at me and smiled. It was a small smile, but it was full of hope. He said, "They gave me the job. I start next week." Tears filled my eyes. I felt light for the first time in months. The job did not pay much, but it was honest work. It meant we could breathe again. I hugged him and said, "We will make it work." Mark held me close and said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Life did not become perfect. We still counted money. We still checked prices. I still cooked for customers, and Mark still learned new tasks at the factory. But now the weight was shared. We talked more. We smiled more. We felt like a team again. Our small home felt warm once more. Hard days taught us something important. We learned that love and support can keep a family strong, even in dark times. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to English Medium Stories. Stay with us for more classic stories in easy English.